were acting like this book was the second fucking coming. What's up, cuties? This is Jessie on YouTube, and I'm here to talk to you today about Black authors that I'm giving a second chance. These are authors who I read a book by them and saw what you were trying to do, and it just didn't work for me personally. These are authors who maybe had a great start to a book, but not a great execution, not a great finish. These are authors who maybe I had read from in the past, and this was their second book. Loved the first one, hated the second one, and now I'm open to reading a third. We have debut authors on this list. We have established authors on this list. We even have some authors that I dare say have potential to be a favorite. So without further delay, without further ado, let us hop into the list of Black authors that I would consider giving a second chance. Why don't we, I feel like my Black art's gonna get taken away, and it's already hanging on by a thread as it is. Don't hate me, y'all. It was not my fault, but the book did not give what was supposed to have been gave, and I know that everybody was riding hard for this book because they were like, oh, this book talks about race in a fun, quirky, contemporary way, which means it's the best book that's ever been written, and I wasn't impressed. I really wasn't impressed. That book is none other than Such a Fun Age by Kiley Reid. Such a fun cover, right? I was so excited to read Such a Fun Age because of the sheer amount of reviews going around on Bookstagram at the time of this book's release. All right, this was at a time in my life where I was writing really hard for Bookstagram, and I still do, but it was a period where a bunch of us as Bookstagrammers, which is such a different space outside of BookTube, we were all a lot smaller. So we really leaned heavily on each other's reviews, and it was just like a nice intimate time on Bookstagram. Now a bunch of us have blown up, a lot of us are professional Bookstagrammers, etc, and I have no shame or shade. I'm happy for anybody who's able to monetize their passions and desires, but I will say that this book, Such a Fun Age, is in a class of books that just makes me nostalgic for that period. Similarly to how I'm often nostalgic for the period of BookTube where we were all new and had no idea that this was going to become a career for us. It's weird when you have moments of missing the past but also really loving the present. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? Anyway, I have held on to this book for so long because of that nostalgia, because it reminds me of where we got started and the start of all of these Bookstagram friendships and the start of seeing critical race discourse books by Black authors from a contemporary fiction standpoint. And it was just so exciting. And looking back, a part of the adoration for this novel is for what it symbolized, the real kickoff of these books starting to get popular, and books about messy Black girls starting to get popular, books about uncomfortable conversations, the white women's racism against Black women, especially white women who are claiming to be our friends or who are our bosses or who we have to have civil proximity to. I was disappointed. I really was. So let's talk about Such a Fun Age. The synopsis alone is so infuriating. We are following a young Black woman whose name is her name Amira? Amira. We are following Amira, who's a young Black woman trying to find her way, and she is at the grocery store babysitting this white woman's toddler, and a security guard comes up and accuses her of stealing this white baby. And Amira says, I didn't steal no white baby. And the security guard says, well, where does white baby come from? Because that's not your baby. Someone starts filming, and the mother of the white baby is named Alex Chamberlain, who is an influencer. She is like a mommy blogger. She has done everything in her life to do things right, and she cares a lot about fighting racism. This mother decides that she's going to do anything that she can to make things right. It's about what happens between the two women from there. And there's so many important things that this book talks about and discusses. It talks about what it means to be a Black nanny, what it means to be a young Black woman who has a financial relationship with a more established and older white woman, even though they were actually really close in age. The politics of having a white ally for a best friend, being in proximity to white women as they work through their own racism. I cannot express how many Alex Chamberlains I have known and loved in my life. Loved platonically, platonically, loved romantically. And Alex Chamberlain symbolizes the specific type of white woman that I have fought tooth and nail to eradicate from my safe spaces. This is a character that's going to frustrate you and challenge you, and you might even see some of yourself in that character. So it's a character that I think white people should definitely read and experience. She reminds me a lot of June from Yellowface, that character who thinks that she is so good because she has good intentions, my intentions are good, but is making a lot of mistakes, not correcting those mistakes, but no. So the reason that this book didn't resonate with me is because I just didn't think it was as good as everybody expected. Had I not been hyped to high hell over this book, for this book, had I been not hyped to high hell for this book due to the wealth of praise, I would have gone in having just more average expectations that were in line with the synopsis. People were acting like this book was the second fucking coming. While I'm not saying it's a bad book, it just was, I have questions, especially if you were in the book community when this was happening, especially if you were on Bookstagram when this was happening. Please let me know how this book has aged for you, how you felt, especially if you are a black person, but I would like perspectives from white folk and non-black folk as well. Anyway, all of that to say, Kiley Reid has a new book coming out today. Or what? Kiley Reid has a new book out and it is called Come Get It. Unfortunate. The cover is unfortunate. Now, I actually don't know the synopsis because you know that I'm not that interested in synopsises as it is. However, I love giving an author a second chance, and that was her debut, and what a strong, incredible debut it was. Come Get It, despite this horrific cover, is something that I do want to read. It is, I haven't even marked it as to read on Goodreads because I'm waiting for the reviews. I'm waiting for the reviews. I'm not jumping to it. I'm just saying I'm open to giving Kiley Reid a second chance. I want to see if the writing has matured. I want to see if we have moved past the type of kind of introductory commentary that we received in Such a Fun Age. And that was another thing for it. I think the conversations in the book were just ones that I had already had with myself, ones that I had already learned from and processed, and I think it was just a little bit behind where I was currently at, where I am currently at in my racial liberation journey and in my unlearning systemic racism and living with systemic racism in society journey, all of that. Which maybe that's why people loved it so much, because that's where they were, and this was the first, you know, fun, accessible, contemporary text that addressed where they were. And I don't know if this makes sense. As you can see, I continue to be confounded why people were so obsessed with this book, but also Black excellence. So 2017 at the University of Arkansas. Oh God, I'm so sorry. We're following 3 unruly students. Millie Cousins, senior resident assistant, wants to graduate. Agatha Paul. What is with these names? So when Agatha Paul, a visiting professor and writer, offers Millie an easy yet unusual opportunity, she jumps at the chance. Very similar to Such a Fun Age, which is cool. I have no problem with authors writing similar premises. Are you writing it well? Great, that's all I care about. Not Goodreads crashing on me. Millie has a starry-eyed hustle, and it becomes jeopardized by odd new friends, vengeful dorm pranks, and illicit intrigue. It's a tension-filled story about money, indiscretion, and bad behavior. Those are all really similar to tropes in Such a Fun Age. And this makes me even more excited for Come and Get It, because I love seeing an author mature with their writing, especially if they take tropes that they've already kind of explored and they explore those same tropes in a different book, in a totally different story. That synopsis actually got me way more hyped for the book. Next up, we are going to be talking about Andrea Hairston, who wrote Master of Poisons. This is one of the most intimidating sci-fi fantasy books.
Actually, I think it's just fantasy.
Books that I have ever read, heard, seen, because this book is so quickly DNF'd by folk for being confusing AF. That is exactly what happened to me. I started this with Starla for a Blackathon either 2 or 3 years back, and we both went, oh, this is not gonna be like an easy read. Gotcha. We got, I think, 2 chapters in and then checked in with each other, and we both were like, so are you struggling? Because I'm struggling. And it seems like that is definitely par for the course. I've seen so many people DNF this book because they are confused, including people who read a ton of fantasy. So she is kind of giving the 5th season. She's kind of giving N.K. Jemisin in terms of you're just wildly confused for the first half or the first book in the series. And I am realizing that I just need to push through because this book is sticking with me, and it qualifies for Camp Oregon, my 2024 Camp Oregon challenge, because it is a desert setting. So I think it's March where a desert setting is our prompt of the month.
Correcting myself here, the prompt that I'm referring to is the wilderness prompt, which takes place in December, and desert settings are also wilderness settings.
This follows a changing world. Poison desert eats good farmland. One sweet water turns foul. The wind blows sand and sadness across the empire. You mean my love life? Jola, right-hand man and spy master of the Lord of the Archesian Empire, is desperately trying to save his adopted homeland, even in exile. And Awa, a young woman training to be a powerful griot, tests the limits of her knowledge and comes into her own in a world of sorcery, floating cities, kindly beasts, and uncertain men. And finally, we have Awash. Oh, I thought this person's name was Awash. Awash in the rhythms of folklore and storytelling, enriched with Hairston's classic lush prose. Master of Poisons is an epic fantasy that will leave you aching for the world it burns into being. Incredible synopsis, right? There's a reason you don't hear people talking about this. There's a reason, because everybody's confused. So if you have commentary on this, I would love to know. Now that I know that I'm in for a mind, you know what, I am ready. I think it's been a couple years. I've matured as a reader. I've matured as a person. I have my annotating game down hard. So I think I'm ready for this. Next up on authors I'm giving a second chance, we have Kellye Garrett, whose first book I read was Like a Sister. Kellye Garrett started out as a kind of like a crime cozy mystery writer. And I love that. I absolutely love that. And this was her adult, moody, serious mystery thriller debut. I was not impressed. Everybody was loving this. I tried it physically and the audiobook, and it was now I enjoyed it. It's not that I don't recommend it. I gave it a 3-star. I literally never think about it if I'm not seeing it on my library in the shelves. This is a book that I'm definitely thinking that as I'm talking, I'm going to unhaul, because I'm a person who, very similar to Kayla, just wants 4- and 5-star books on their shelves, and this one is not it. But I love cozy, cabin-y mysteries, especially following Black women just trying to figure stuff out, especially if there's like a little bit of a romance in it. I just enjoy them. So I am interested in giving Kelly's backlist a try, but I really want to give something a try from her that is in a little bit more serious of a tone. She's got a book coming out that I'm going to tell you that's the reason why I was like, okay, I'm gonna give her a second chance. But before I tell you about the new release, I wanna tell y'all about this book. If you were not familiar with Like a Sister, came out a couple years ago and people were vibing for it. The synopsis is incredible. We're following a sister who is estranged from her family, who are wealthy music producers, musicians, etc. And her sister dies from a heroin overdose, and she sets out to figure out what happened because she knows that her sister would never mess with heroin. Not never. She knows that it's not possible. Her sister's terrified of needles. She just knows it is not it. So she goes on an investigation, and it's about what happens from there. And it just was aight for me. Fast forward to 2024. Kellye has a book coming out titled Missing White Woman, and this cover, I'm just saying. Blurbed as a compulsive page turner by Harlan Coben, this is about a woman who thinks she's waking up to a romantic vacation only to find a body in her rental home and her boyfriend gone. Love it. It qualifies for Camp Oregon. We stan. The truth is never skin deep. It was supposed to be a romantic getaway weekend in New York City. Brianna's new boyfriend, Ty, took care of everything, tickets, the dinner, reservations.
Well, that's why it went wrong.
Jokes aside, the boy sounds very, very cute. We love it. We absolutely love to see men taking their girls on vacations. I just stan. I just love it. When Bree comes downstairs their final morning, Ty's nowhere to be found, and there's a stranger dead in the foyer. The missing woman, the entire internet, oh no. So the body that's in the foyer is a missing woman the entire internet has become obsessed with, and her name is Janelle Beckett. So police and sleuths are slinking around the apartment asking all these questions, and Bree realizes there's only one person she can turn to, her ex-best friend, a lawyer with whom she shares a very complicated and thrilling past. I am excited. How well can we truly know the people we love and what happens to these stories when seen through the eyes of a Black woman? If you've been here more than 5 minutes, you will know that the topic of missing Black girls and how Black children specifically, but children of color, when they go missing, are treated in the media. Those are two things that are very, very close to my heart for personal reasons. I will always pick up books by people of color about missing people of color, especially if they are about Black, Latinx, and Indigenous folk. So this book just screams yes. It screams yes. Another book, another one. We have a Stacey Abrams title. We were so excited about reading While Justice Sleeps because it combines things we absolutely love. Puzzle, mystery, search and finding clues with genetics, with law, and a Black girl. Let me just talk about the synopsis and then I'll explain why this book did not work for me. It seemed like it didn't work for a lot of people because I seem to remember that it was all over people's anticipated lists, and then when it came time to talk about our best books and our favorite books or reviews for that book, it was... While Justice Sleeps follows a biracial Black woman who is Black and white, and she is trying to make something of herself. She is working at a law firm. I don't believe she's a lawyer, but I think she's a paralegal or something adjacent to an attorney. As she's trying to find her footing, her mom comes back into her life. I can't remember if her mother is an addict or an alcoholic or both. So she is trying to keep this under wraps because she wants to keep her job. And then her boss, who is this old white judge, mysteriously retires out of nowhere and then leaves her in charge. And everyone's like, what the fuck? And she is now in charge of a genetics firm. People are out to get her. The CIA is involved, that kind of thing. I was so excited about this because it kind of gives Judge Judy meets, what is it called? Judge Judy meets Angels and Demons, The Da Vinci Code, Dan Brown, right? I remember as a kid loving Dan Brown and thinking that those books were the height of literature and that I was so smart for reading them. We love it. The book just was boring. It was boring. It didn't have any passion in it. It was hyper technical and it just simply wasn't for me. I do not mind technical writing, but it just felt like it was very, very dry. I need a book with a little bit more lubricant. Now, this book makes me nervous because I'm worried that it might not have lubricant. And what I love, so this is my pet peeve, when the author's name is bigger than the title of the book. So what's funny is Stacey Abrams also writes romance. Her romance name is Selena Montgomery. And for those of you who don't know who Stacey Abrams is, she's a giant. She is a politician. Ew, no, woof. A well-established and decorated writer, so many things, an incredible Black woman. Stacey Abrams writing as Selena Montgomery. So if Selena Montgomery is the name that's supposed to be on this book, why is Stacey Abrams this big and Selena Montgomery is this small? And why is this bigger than that? Again, I just have questions. From best-selling author and American politician and activist, Stacey Abrams writing under her pen name Selena Montgomery. They want to make sure we know that Stacey Abrams wrote this book. And we truly, truly hope that Stacey had a say in this, because I would be annoyed as hell, but let me let it go. The politics of publishing, man. The politics of publishing. So this is about Dr. Rowley Foster, who's an operative for a top secret intelligence organization and knows that her undercover work has risks. I should certainly hope so. She doesn't hesitate when she's asked to infiltrate Scimitar, the terrorist group that has stolen lethal environmental technology. But when she's assigned a partner, a brooding is never good. Sexy Grayson to pose as her lover, not fake dating. Raleigh discovers the most dangerous risk of all is falling in love. And then it gets more, there's web of secrets, intense desire, Adam blames himself for something, etc., etc., etc. So, we are hoping that because this is supposed to have a romantic element, it will feel less dry. I'm hoping that maybe we can use some of the lubricant from these two people to make this story exciting, because if this doesn't work, I think Stacey Abrams just isn't an author for us, and that's gonna make me really, really sad, especially because Starla really enjoys her romances, and Starla is very, very picky about their romances. So if Starla says a romance is it, we're down to clown, especially because Starla is my rating twin. It is very rare that I read a book and love it and they don't also read it and love it, and vice versa. Get you a friend where you love and hate the same books. 4 more artists on this list. The next author that I'm going to talk to y'all about is James Baldwin. Now hear me out. So James Baldwin is an incredible essayist, Black queer author, incredible, has done incredible things in the literary world, in the Black arts world, etc. And we absolutely adore his essays. I was obsessed with reading his essays in college in particular, really enjoyed it, but had never read any of his books. And if you remember the first ever Blackathon, when I was releasing daily vlogs for 7 days because I was young and had energy, I read Giovanni's Room, and I was very excited about Giovanni's Room. Went into it not knowing that Giovanni was white, so I was very confused for a long part of the book why this Black man seemed so not Black. And I don't mean in how he was acting, I mean the way he was described as having white skin and all these things. So I'm like, is this social commentary on how we view ourselves through the lens of whiteness after years and years of subjugation and white supremacy that make us think that in order to be valid and beautiful, we have to see ourselves through the lens of our colonizer, and maybe that will help keep us living through this awful oppression. You know what I mean? Giovanni was white, and we were super excited about having commentary about the intersections of Blackness and maleness and queerness. Definitely not the story that I read. And this was because Baldwin even said, back in the day when Giovanni came out, said, I was not prepared or not ready or whatever to write about these things with the intersection of Blackness. I just wrote, I chose to write them about white male queerness, which is completely valid. I didn't know that going in, and I had a lot of issues with the book as a whole. That is a book that I would need to revisit and re-review with the experience that I have now, but I remember my criticisms of that book very well, and I really couldn't even begin to speak on them and if I would still align with those critiques until I've reread it, and honestly, I was bored by it regardless, so I just don't think the book was for me. There were so many things about that text that said not for me that I have strayed away from reading more of his work. He is a formidable author for a reason, and a beautiful author that I really want to be able to celebrate. I have The Fire Next Time in my TBR. I have it physically, and I'm so excited to read it. That is going to be me giving Baldwin a second chance. Now, outside of Giovanni's Room, first of all, I would love to hear what y'all thought of Giovanni's Room. But outside of Giovanni's Room, what books by James Baldwin do you recommend? If I'm gonna give him one more chance, what book should I start with? Kann. So Let's Talk About Love was a book that everybody was really excited about because it talks about Black bi-ness and aceness, and it was this cute contemporary romance book between a young Black woman and a young Asian man. Super cute, right? If I remember correctly, both of them were queer, and the book was about both of them like figuring out a lot of things. The drama of the book essentially comes from a tumultuous relationship between the protagonist and her best friend, but she meets this boy that she really likes, however is afraid of telling him that she's ace and how that's going to change things. It was a great, beautiful novel, especially if you are new to conversations about aceness. Ace spectrum folk had a lot of varying opinions on it. In terms of aceness and other marginalized identities as well, but in terms of aceness, it is expected that the ace representation speak to every ace person, or else it is deemed as not good representation. So it is really important to remember, as somebody who is also ace spectrum, just because the representation doesn't speak to you doesn't mean it's bad representation. Those are not the same things. However, of course, we know that there is bad representation. Having read this book years ago at the time and reading it through a critical lens, I did not see anything problematic about the ace depiction, but I did see a lot of people being frustrated that the ace depiction didn't speak to their aceness specifically. And a big part of the reason why this happens is because there's so much pressure on ace writers to get it right, to speak to all ace people's experiences, due to the fact that there aren't enough popular books centering ace identity. I could talk about that for miles and miles, but I'm not going to. Claire Kann has a romance that came out a couple years ago featuring a full-figured Black woman and on vacation.
Correction, I was merging the romantic agenda with If It Makes You Happy. If It Makes You Happy is the book that has a full-figured Black protagonist, and the romantic agenda is the one where the protagonist goes on vacation. Both of the books look amazing and both are on my TBR.
Y'all know,
say it with me, kids,
Jessie loves the journey trope. Jessie loves Black travel. Jessie loves road trip stories. Jessie loves all of those things. It's why we created Camp Oregon. If you're not familiar with Camp Oregon, this is my readathon. It's now a month-long. This is a readathon that I'm doing throughout the year where we read books that are set at camp or where a character is forced to make camp due to emergency circumstances, or they're set in the woods, on vacation, on a beach, on an island, any kind of like isolated setting. You can read any genres for it. I started it with thriller and horror, but it applies to romance books, etc. I'd love to read this as one of my Camp Oregon books this year for sure. If you have read this book, please let me know what you thought of it. This one is not going to surprise anybody. Kalynn Bayron is also on this list. It is not a secret that I did not like Cinderella Isn't Dead, or Is Dead, or Is Gonna Die. We have made that very, very clear. I've talked at length about the problems in that book, the problematic depiction of closeted queer characters. Oh my gosh, like I just don't even want to revisit that. But I gave her a second chance and read You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight. Loved it. I read it. It was the perfect Camp Oregon book. It was the great Black final girl novel. It was amazing. However, there is a scene very early in the novel where a girl slaps her boyfriend across the face. Everybody laughs and it's seen as comedic, and I just don't find domestic violence funny, and I really need that to stop being pictured as funny. Would have given the book 5 stars, but I gave it a 4. Now, I'm gonna give this woman I'm giving her one more chance. I'm giving her one more chance. I have My Dear Henry on my Blackathon TBR. This is a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde remix, and I cannot wait. So I'm writing a retelling. My retelling is a Robin Hood retelling. And I've been working on it for 2 years now, 3 years. I think this is going on the 3rd year. Black retellings have a very special place in my heart, and I have always loved Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Always, especially after watching not the Expendables, not the Incredibles, the Exceptionary, oh my gosh, what is this frickin' movie? Extraordinary Gentlemen. The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was so cool in that film, and seeing him, like I remember that scene where he goes under the water and he transforms into Mr. Hyde. I get really nerdy about weird shit, and that scene really left an impression on me for so many reasons. I thought that it was amazing, and long story short, I have had a thing for Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde ever since. Honestly, ever since I read it before even seeing The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen in my middle school class, and I just loved it. I loved it. And have y'all seen, not Peaky Blinders, Penny Dreadful? Penny Dreadful depicts a lot of these villains or monsters and creatures from that era. The era of Jack the Ripper, from Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That is a character, those are characters in the book as well. Dracula was a character. You had a werewolf, and these characters were brought together so seamlessly, and life was breathed into them. Dorian Gray was in it, and I went in ready to hate this depiction of Dorian Gray. That man knew what he was doing. It was the shit. Long story short, this is the book that I am going to give a second chance, or I guess now we're going on our 3rd chance, because I just don't believe in, specifically, especially when it comes to an author writing a problematic theme, but the book otherwise is really solid, or a problematic line. The world is not going to give, oh my gosh, the sun keeps moving over, so I keep having to move over. The world is not going to give us as Black people second chances. So if I ever have the ability, the energy, or the desire, and it doesn't violate a boundary of mine to give a Black person a second chance, I'm absolutely going to do that, especially a Black writer. Because white writers are out here making all kinds of mistakes, and by mistakes we mean choices, decisions at this point. Like, you know damn well what people are gonna say. Zionist authors who are releasing a book this year and everybody's reading it and no one's talking about their Zionism, but that's none of my business. I'm excited to read My Dear Henry. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm excited to read it, and we're just gonna see how we feel about this author after that. But that being said, I think that she tells incredible stories. I think that she has a lot of heart. I think that she genuinely is in it. She is doing the Lord's work in terms of Black queerness, and just, I love it. I absolutely love to see it. It's just these little lines and these little scenes that I'm like, yo, we gotta move past it. Domestic violence isn't funny. Tearing down closeted characters isn't funny. Come on, let's get it together. And finally, we have Candice Carty-Williams. This breaks my frickin' heart and soul because I loved Queenie. Queenie was one of the best books I've ever read. I think about it all the time. I recommend it all the time. Get a job. I'm trying to do mine. Are you gonna put food in your own dish? Go lay down. No! You're so annoying. You're so annoying. The baby. No, don't come over here. No! No! Get out of there! I have hair on me. So Queenie by Candice Carty-Williams was incredible. We are following a Jamaican British woman, as she's trying to get her life together. She is messy. She has a slew of sexual experiences with people, guys that she should not be sleeping with, and she knows this. She struggles with hypersexuality as a symptom of her complex PTSD. She struggles with mental illness, but her family doesn't believe that that exists, so she starts seeing a therapist. She also starts to experience the repercussions of a lot of her behaviors. But this is a woman who's trying to work through those behaviors and is trying to understand why her body is so hypersexualized, why she is the woman because of her full figure and her Blackness and her box braids, why she is the woman who is good enough to sleep with behind closed doors, but not the one who's good enough to bring home. There were so many things about Queenie that, like, I was just emotional. And I couldn't wait for People Person, which was the long awaited for debut. Sophomore novel from Candice Carty-Williams. Unfortunately, People Person was so disappointing. I DNF'd it. It was not great. It was not great. To be fair, I didn't get very far, but maybe it got better. I just could not allow it didn't feel like the same author wrote People Person as did Queenie. To my knowledge, Candice Carty-Williams does not have another book announced. However, I am willing to give this author a second chance. And I'm really, really worried that the reason that People Person was so drastically different and why the direction was different and even the writing was different is because Candice let the criticisms for Queenie get to her. People, even some I'm not even gonna lie, a lot of Black women reviewers were reviewing Queenie in the most sex-shaming, no kindness, no empathy way that I've ever seen from Black female reviewers. And it just, again, speaks to the disdain that we have for the hypersexual, the disdain that we have for Black women who don't behave in their lane. Also the way that we just don't fundamentally understand the way that PTSD and anxiety and depression can manifest in Black girls. A lot of times it does manifest as hypersexuality, and there's so many reasons why that happens. And this isn't just a thing with Black girls, but obviously we're talking about Black girls right now. One of my pet peeves is when I say something specifically, I'm talking about within the Black context, and someone else is like, well, this is a thing in Germans too. And I'm like, well, yes, but we talking about Black people right now. Of course it is. We talking about Black people, so. Specifically. And also this idea that was beaten into us as kids, like, you're fast, you're this, you're that. I just have never seen so much sex shaming, especially from your own community, as I have with Queenie. And it was really, really sad to see so many reviewers look down upon these really messy, self-harming choices that Queenie was making and not giving her any compassion or understanding. It made me really sad. And so I'm really starting to wonder if that is why People Person was such a different book, because I can only imagine what it must have felt like to Candice Carty-Williams for writing this grieving Black girl who is untreated and is trying to treat herself and to make herself feel better, and to see other Black women tear that girl apart. And let us not even talk about the reviews from white women. We're just gonna leave those alone. I was shook. So yes, Queenie, in my opinion, potentially #1 misunderstood book that I have read on my time on the Bookstagram community especially. This video was so much ranting. I feel like I've just been having a conversation with y'all this entire video, so I hope that this is okay. It's definitely a departure from my normally like very well thought out videos.
Which is funny because I don't think anything through.
Yep, so she doesn't have anything announced, but put some love and respect on Candice Carty-Williams' name, y'all. That's gonna do it for this video. This was so much fun to film. I loved this. Now it's time for questions. Tell me in the comment section down below one author you gave a second chance to and how that turned out. If you want more content from me, you should join my Patreon because it is thebomb.com over there. We are currently doing a watch along for Siren Survive the Island, which is this amazing show on Netflix following Korean women who are on this island, and each of them are at the peak of their field. So firefighters, soldiers, athletes, and they are competing against each other in teams for survival. It is so cool. We do amazing stuff like that over on the Patreon, so jump on over if you're interested, but my social media links are down below. Our NB book club pick is Stars in Your Eyes by Kaysen Colander. Very, very excited about that. Kaysen is also an author where I was like, oh, maybe these books just aren't for me, and then Felix Ever After came out, and we are just riding the Kaysen train ever since. Incredible, absolutely incredible writer. This is the first of many of the Blackathon 2024 videos. I'm going to be having a discussion on Black dark academia later this month, so stay tuned. Bye, y'all.